Let's finish 5-5, the second half of our lesson on standard form. This is our fourth form, and as you can see, it's now filled in on the chart. Standard form, ax plus by equals c, and as we're going to go over today, generally you want integers for a, b, and c. I love it when things are very, very simple, and problem 3 is very, very simple. When you are trying to graph horizontal or vertical lines, you are going to end up with equations that might look something like this. X equals 3. Well, if you think about it, x equals 3 all the way up and down here. So x equals 3 is a line that is completely vertical. You may remember from other sections, this is not a function, but it is a line. And x equals 3 for whatever your y value is. So that's how it looks. They want you to take this extra step here of putting it in standard form. And I think that's good practice so that you can remember that x equals 3 also means that there's a coefficient of 1 in front of the x. You could put a 0 y in there because that's standard form needs that y, and your constant stays the same. So given x equals 3, I would like you to be able to use your noodle and figure out, oh look, that's a vertical line that crosses the x-axis at 3. But you also should be able to put it in standard form. Similarly, for a horizontal line, you're given just a y value. This is where y always equals 3. There's no change in it. So again, if you were to convert it to standard form, 0x, y has a coefficient of 1, equals 3. Honestly, forgot at number 3, I don't want you to graph each of those. They're either horizontal lines or vertical lines. I'd like you to use your noodle and figure out which one they are. So here's step 1. Put each of these in standard form. Again, I expect that this should be easy for you. If putting what they gave you into the standard form is confusing, then you need to talk to me for a little extra help. Ultimately, what I expect you to be able to do is just look at this equation and say, oh, that's a vertical line where x equals 4. That's a vertical line where x equals -1. That's a horizontal line right on the y-axis. Wait a minute, the y-axis is not a horizontal line. That's a horizontal line right on the x-axis, like I was saying. There we go. And that's a horizontal line everywhere that y equals 1. There is a mnemonic device that may or may not be helpful for you. If it helps, please use it. Here it is, H-O-Y-V-U-X. Or I suppose you could call it Hoy-Vux, which at least means it's fun to say. And all it is a couple of nonsense words that stands for this. Horizontal line has a slope of 0, and the equation starts with y equals. A vertical line has an undefined slope, and the equation starts with x equals. There you go. Use it if it helps. So, problem 4, page 322, transforming to standard form, which really is just manipulating an equation. They show you the steps, and they prefer that you use integers, which means at some point you're going to have to multiply things by either 7 or -7 to clear that fraction, and they show you how to do it. Got it. Number 4, write this down and transfer it into standard form using integers, which means you're going to have to clear that -1/3 somehow. not least, standard form as a model, which I really like because this is writing equations like we were doing earlier this year, but now you can do the next step, add a graph, convert the equation, all kinds of fun things. So they give you this setup. Notice they say a media download store and not, iTunes. So anyway, iTunes, songs for $1 each, movies for $12 each. You have $60 to spend. How are you going to do it? Well, if X is songs and Y is movies, songs are $1, movies are $12, and you have $60 to spend, 1 times X plus 12 times Y needs to equal 60. And there it is, already in standard form. Easy enough to graph, just find the intercepts, put 0 in for X and for Y. You remember that from your last lesson, right? And they graph it for you. Now, one thing I do not understand is why they tell you to graph this as a line, because really this is one of those discrete functions. You can't buy part of a movie or part of a song. However, I'm not going to argue because it's a whole lot easier to graph this as a line and then figure out where the points are after you're done. So go ahead and graph it as a line, but be aware that this really is a discrete function. Notice also they're only using the positive the positive quadrant of this graph because you can't buy negative movies or negative songs. And that is the end of that. Down here where they say check for reasonableness, they're basically talking about what the domain and range need to be. Always a good thing to think about, especially since in Got It number 5, they want you to figure out what the domain and range are. So a slight change to what already happened, and then go ahead and give me some numbers for domain and range in part B. Here's how you would change your equation. For part B, there are a lot of different ways to say this, as long as your answer reflects that all of the numbers will be integers, they will all be positive. It'd be very nice if you realized that X can't be any bigger than 60. And as a bonus, some way of saying Y is between 1 and 4, or Y is exactly 1, 2, 3, or 4, something along those lines would be great. So we end with a lovely diagram showing one line in 3 different forms, same equation: slope-intercept form, point-slope form, or standard form. Not a ton of classwork for this. I found it took me a little bit longer. Maybe I'm just extra sleepy today. So I didn't give you very many problems. Notice one of them's odd. That's all. Good work.